giving you an opportunity to get the full story from the people who tell it best. This is Mediacom News Leaders.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mediacom News Leaders. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Carol Kelly. Joining us today, Peter Komendowski, formerly of the Partnership for Drug-Free Iowa, as many might be aware. You're changing the name. We've got the new name, a Partnership for a Healthy Iowa. Talk to us about that new organization.
Yeah, it's a big change because I think it signifies what we've evolved to over the years. You know, we're still Partnership for Drug-Free Iowa, and then before that, Face It Together Coalition. None of those capabilities has been diminished. But one thing that's changed is that rather than being on the forefront of just dealing with the substance abuse issue, we're now looking at all high-risk behaviors in children. And what we've learned is that there's been such a huge emphasis on helping people where they've already had the problem. And it's hard to help people a lot when they're already dealing with these consequences. So we're making a step to expand into dealing with people that typically are not listening to the prevention message.
So talk to us, too, just why the change was very important.
Well, we work with a lot of people in human trafficking and suicide and other youth issues, body image. There's just a whole lot of mental health issues that underlie what we've always worked with, which is substance abuse and high-risk behavior. And so there are probably 100 wonderful organizations in Iowa, all focused on each of these high-risk behaviors. And our research has continued to lead us in a direction where we can help all of those organizations by building their capacity for communicating with those parents and those caregivers that are typically sitting there going, well, it's not going to happen to my child, or I don't have this problem in my neighborhood or in my school, when in fact the research shows it does. So rather than focus on the problem specifically that a lot of other people are working on very well, we're trying to work with parents, caregivers, and leaders in the community to make sure that all of these great ideas get a voice so that we can actually long-term reduce the incidence of these behaviors and make kids happier and healthier.
So initially, it felt like you were kind of running toward people that were dealing with the problems.
Yep.
Now you are going to be focusing on prevention. Can you talk to us a little bit about what some of the research has been showing and why that direction for change?
Well, prevention is a phenomenally good investment in a culture. And our focus, though it's still prevention, you have to remember that for prevention in culture in America today is usually after the fact. We have a problem with opioids, we have a problem with meth, then we say, oops, we need prevention money. Now, for bean counters, that creates a scenario where they say, all right, we now have a problem, and we can measure how good we are by how much we reduce the problem. This doesn't help a parent with an at-risk child. So what we're doing is saying, hey, that's great, and we still do that kind of prevention work. But now we're saying, what can we do to make sure these things do not happen? Actually looking at pure prevention. Now, you can't identify what you prevented, but we now know in terms of how to build a family, a community, and a school, what things to do so we can have a better climate, a better ecology for prevention.
Let's talk about that. Let's dive right in. What are some of the tools that we are saying, and through your research, to help parents and really supply them with the tools necessary to grow and have some great kids?
Part of it's the concept that parents are necessary to growth, and that they need to address the fact that these tools are out there even if they don't think it's a problem in their household. The way to ensure something bad doesn't happen is to build a strong family and to build a strong relationship with a teacher and educator, to build a strong relationship with the faith community. And what we've seen in the last 10 or 15 years is the strongest relationships that our youth have been building have all been happening through computers and cell phones. All things that parents have a lot to do with.
Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing, too, in the home and some of the threats, I guess you could say, toward a healthy environment.
Here's the scariest thing. Now, we see a lot of it in terms of, understanding risk is so important to a child that if they know that something is dangerous, they're less likely to do it. And it seems like less and less people are willing to tell children that things are dangerous. It's like they're afraid to tell them what to do. And one of the biggest risk factors that we see is who they're listening to. I don't think parents recognize sometimes that that computer and that cell phone allows them to interact with people that are complete strangers to your family, probably do not have the values that as a parent you'd like, and they're basically being invited into your home through this media. Now, we used to worry about a drug dealer at the school. We used to worry about bad kids in the community. You know, we had all kinds of ways to structure our fear, and that really dominated a lot of what we used to call prevention. What we're recognizing now is that bad things can happen in any number of ways. Bad people are the most opportunistic people in the world because when they prey on somebody, they don't have the burden of a moral or ethical thought or caring about their outcomes, which is really the topmost thought in the parent's mind. And it's something that children know very little about. So just from their naivete and innocence, they don't know enough. And parents, because they feel segregated from that kind of environment, maybe don't take enough initiative. And we're really trying to push that, where the whole community rises together, where parents that don't have problems in their homes work with their children, not just to make their home safer, but to empower their children to be mentors for their friends and kids at school. And so they get this whole sort of framework of prevention and healthy community moving from every possible source.
Have you found that through research that there is a segment of the community that is a little bit more, I guess there's a higher chance that
Yes.
those kids could get into trouble?
There's no doubt that when there's stressors in the home, whether it's divorce, job loss, emotional problems, illness, any number of stressors, children really react to that in a lot of ways. I think the key is that what we're seeing in recent years isn't that we're identifying more risk amongst what we would consider at-risk situations, whether these problems exist, is we're seeing more bad things happening to families where there are less of these problems. Good families that aren't getting divorced, that have great jobs, where the kids have everything. All of a sudden we're seeing more issues with body image, with suicides, with bullying, happening in those households. So that's one of the indicators that showed us that we need to reach out further into the places where we're not getting the person that's in treatment or arrested or getting to the resource officer at the school or the counselor, because we know we can do a lot of great things at that point. But we're starting to see that we can now also do a lot of great things before that point.
Enter in your organization to a parent. What are some of the resources that are out there and some of the things and ways that you are able to help?
Okay, the first thing is we have a new website, and that website focuses on connection. In other words, a parent or organization can register on that site, connect with us, find out what resources they have, look at our schedules. One of the initiatives that this new image is the fact that I am now going around to communities all over the state, sometimes working with faith organizations, speaking at schools, working with service organizations, to actually have this dialogue with parents. Not because I have a lot to tell them they have to do, but because by initiating that dialogue and that conversation, we can talk about those strategies in a way that they can use them the way they want to. Because we don't know what the specific risks are, but we know that parents sense problems with kids, detachment, the fear of what happens when they're out of the household or in the computer, and we can give them some guidance as to how to deal with that more comfortably. And we're also doing it with kids. I mean, the children feel a little bit detached from parents. Just because they can be on their computer all day doesn't mean they'd rather be there. Just because they're hanging around with kids maybe they shouldn't have doesn't mean that's what they want to do. They depend on parents and caregivers to give them guidelines as to how to live their life. And so by going around to various communities and meeting with people and parents, and personally, somebody can get in the website, my phone number's there, call me. I will deal with an individual mom. It doesn't have to be an auditorium with 700 people. We know that problems are solved one person at a time. And these challenges aren't something that we own the rights to. For a lot of people, things make sense. We're just there to help validate the fact that what makes sense to them is real and they should do it to make their family stronger and their children safer.
You've talked about your partnerships with many different organizations now, and with the new change and the new partnership for a healthy Iowa, that your organization is going to be able to partner with these organizations easier. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Yeah,
we used to just go around in every community, work with different organizations. Now we're going to use the website to let them all register, put their missions out there, their contact information, so when we run into somebody, they can maybe understand that there's other places to look. What we have learned is that it's hard for a parent to say, I think my child is suicidal. But we have great suicide prevention assets out there. But there's always that gap, like, well, if I call them, is that an admission that I did something wrong? Or I think my parent is playing with drugs. Well, we're hoping that by empowering the healthy side of the equation, saying we need the help of every parent, every community to help all the kids, it may not just be their own, that by having all of these organizations plug into our website, we're sort of building a spirit of working together, that it's not pick one. It's not like you're shopping for what's the problem my child's going to have, but hopefully you can go somewhere and sort of look and say, what could be the problems? And then what could I do that can help prevent that from happening?
Can we talk a little bit about timeline? Obviously, we want to spend as much time, and obviously that's going to be the most healthy relationship with a child. Can you talk to us a little bit about, if it's, some ideas that you have for parents to be able to connect with their kids?
Yeah, and you might have heard this before from me. We're seeing trends at a very young age. In 5th grade in Iowa, a survey showed that 80-some% of 5th grade boys accessed porn regularly, and 48% of 5th grade girls. So we're seeing some really severe breakdowns in communications between parents and children at a young age, where parents should be setting very strict guidelines. But as a parent, I can't imagine talking to a 13-year-old and saying, I don't want you looking at porn. But the fact is that today, the way the world is, parents need to know they have to say that. Because if they don't, that child has no perception of risk, doesn't realize it's bad, and will have a problem, potentially.
Talk to us, too, about how the world and how the problems have changed. Obviously, they're not the problems that when we were growing up. Kids are dealing with different things in a completely different capacity. Can you tell us just a little bit about how your organization has treated and has moved forward to being, updated with the times?
Oh, yeah, and some of it's in dealing with children and talking about issues like vaping. Vaping is a big one. Recent statistics show that there's been the biggest increase in nicotine use in the history of mankind amongst young kids in high school. So what we've done is this whole vaping idea that was, whatever the theory was behind it, has turned into a monster. And so we're going to have more kids addicted to nicotine, which is all forms of bad behavior. And so we're now looking at staying on the leading edge of what they're actually encountering and trying to not tell them this is always just bad, don't, but show them how they might have been manipulated to get to a position where they don't recognize the health risks and the behavioral risks associated with that. Most of our research, especially the stuff we do at Iowa State University and Mayo Clinic, is really focused at what's happening with youth today. We have a lot of data on what's been happening 10, 15, even 5 years ago. But these new threats are emerging almost daily. We had human trafficking for a long time, but man, it exploded with the internet getting into people's homes. We had drug problems in the past. It exploded with people being able to buy stuff on the web. We've had smoking problems with children. It was totally exacerbated by the e-cigarettes. So we're not really that good at even knowing things and changing the behavior. But in spite of that, things like fentanyls and all kinds of other predatory things that happen on the internet, video game addiction, social media addiction, multitasking and task switching, we're seeing all kinds of things contribute to mental health issues with children, where their life gets confusing, they don't understand how things organize themselves, they don't know what they're supposed to do. And parents are the first line of investment. Teachers are in the first line of investment. Faith leaders on the first line of investment. And that is a large part of the community that we're constantly dealing with, to give them the tools and resources and accesses to not just the local organizations, but some of the front-running research that says, here is what's emerging. Get on this now before it becomes big in your community. While at the same time, we do pay homage to all the things that are going on, like the opioid crisis and marijuana crisis and alcohol consumption by youth. Those problems have not yet gone away. But we certainly want to limit any new ones that come in at the same time.
We've talked so much about, unfortunately, the negativity of what's going on. Can we talk a little bit about the successes and some of the things that your organization has been able to say, we've accomplished this?
Oh, absolutely. In digital literacy, and it's in schools now in Iowa, we're actually showing parents, teachers, and children the positive benefits of using the media. At the same time, we're trying to maximize the benefits while minimizing the risks. It looks like we're really focused on a lot of negatives, but many things, whether it's medicines or media, have tremendously powerful positive aspects, and we teach those all the time. Use it the right way. The old analogy, hammer, build a house with it, you build something great, hit somebody in the head with it, not so good. And we're trying to teach people how to build houses, build families, and build their own character at the same time without hurting themselves or somebody else.
A new name, a new website. Where should someone go to learn a little bit more and just get started?
Yeah, go to ahealthyiowa.org. Don't be afraid to register. We don't, I love contacting people, but we don't have time to spend a lot of time bothering them. So register, get your emails there, send questions, call me. Everything starts in an individual home, in a family, in a case, so don't be afraid. Nobody's going to stigmatize you because this is a rapidly changing world, and we're trying to stay in the front of it to make sure our children and families are the safest possible. It's
all about starting that conversation. A partnership for a healthy Iowa. Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
This has been Mediacom News Leaders, your opportunity to get the full story from the most reliable sources exclusively on Mediacom News Leaders.